Everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, Taylor. Welcome, Mr. Ahmed. Welcome, Sheila. Welcome, Uday. Welcome, David, Joy, Damilola, Jobiola. Everyone, welcome. Please, if you can hear me, kindly confirm with your reactions. We are starting the class right away, but we are just 24 in number. Just please, let's go back to our groups and make noise that the class has commenced. So I'll be giving us 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, please just confirm you can hear me loud and clear. We are 29 in the class, and we are starting the class right away. So please inform your colleagues that are not in the class yet. Tell them to join us. So if you can hear me, just one more time, just confirm that, please, before we start. Anyone want to give me a thumbs up? All right, thank you so much. Okay, so today is going to be a very wonderful section because we have an expert in the house, in the person of Mr. Moshin Ahmed. So today's live section is about ask the expert. So you want to ask questions based on the previous projects, the previous class, the last what you've done, during the week. Many of us, we had a project that we did on Excel. So this is an opportunity for you to showcase, to ask any question related to data analysis and your career. So the WhatsApp group has been prepared for you to drop your questions. So Mr. Ahmed, there is a WhatsApp group that we have already. So we have some questions there. So if you are fine with it, I'll read them out to you. Also, you can also drop your questions on the chat here on Teams. I'll read it out. And if you want to ask the question, I will enable your microphones just for you to speak. All right, as we know, we have our ground rules in the class, punctuality, which you guys have been doing well. I want to say just keep it up. Have an open mind. It's a one class and participate. Today is interactive session. Ask question, respect everyone, respect every question. And then of course you should know by now that your microphone is always muted, and I'll always just raise up your hand. I'll grant you access. So who am I? My name is Kasali Samson. Once again, I'm glad to be your host for today, your co-host for today. And of course, few of you know me, you've met me virtually, and I'm Kasali Samson. I'm a supply chain analyst, data analyst at EY Nigeria. I have some experience which I got from this bootcamp as well, just like you. And today, I've been able to get a job, not just a remote job. Yes, a remote job here in Nigeria. And I want to tell you that you can do this as well. Yeah. So today we are having a very special trainer, someone who have been opportune to, I've learned something under this man. I remember the last year and year before, he also came on board and facilitates some sessions. So today we have with us Mr. Moshin Ahmed. I wanted to give a thumbs up, just celebrating. So he's a Microsoft certified trainer with a lot of experience, and as you can see, look at the evidence. He is a Power Platform app maker certified, Power Platform fundamental certified, Power Platform developer certified, Power BI data analyst certified, Fabrics certified. He studied mechanical engineering at Lautech, an engineer that became a data analyst. Imagine a business analyst. So even if you're a medical doctor, yes, you are not on the wrong path. You're in the right path. And he has 5+ business BI intelligence experience in this field. Like I said, he's a trainer in Microsoft, certified trainer, and he has working, consulting, FMCG sectors and non-profit sectors. He has trained over 15,000 people, senior management on Power Platform, which include Power BI, Automate, and apps in big data, office tools, and skills and business. And also he has built some robust applications. And of course, he's one of the community technical officer for the Power Platform Nigeria user groups. If you don't know about that, I would just advise you research about this. Is a platform you love to be a member of. And is a co-lead for Power Platform user group at Oyo State here in Nigeria. And finally, is the operation lead and lead facilitator of ID analytics rather. So I want you to welcome with me Mr. Moshin Ahmed to come on board before we ask the before we begin the question and answer. So, Mr. Machine, you have the floor. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sampson. Thanks a lot for the warm introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I saw a message on the chat. Someone referred to me as an engineer. I hope you don't put me in the limelight. So NSC and the likes are not after me. I'm not an engineer. Yeah, I studied mechanical engineering, but again, I've never practiced as an engineer. So straight out of school, I've had to pursue something else, and that's what I've been doing. And like something mentioned, everyone else can do kind of studies. If you think you have passion for something else, I believe the age we are in now is one that accommodates every single person, so long as you have the mind to pursue it. Thanks again, everyone, for having me. It's a pleasure being here. Thanks, Samson.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ahmed. So right now, last week we met, and there are some of the activities that we have to go through on Excel. And at the end of the week, we were given a project on to build the HR analytics dashboard rather for a scenario-based HR company, healthcare company rather. So many of us have done this project, and review has been going on, the likes of me and Mr. Ganil and Mr. Adewale himself has been giving review. So today has been set apart for people to ask questions basically on the projects, the assignment, and data career at a go. People are around today to ask you questions. So I don't mind. There are two ways, if you mind. Some drop your question on the group, which I'll read out to you one after the other. You provide answer, and some have their hands up that they would love to ask virtually. So I don't know which one should we start with first. Should I read the first? Should I read the one on the group first, or you want to answer the ones we have here live first?
Either ways works.
Okay. So because we have just two people, we have Elizabeth and Olufemi Farwaya. So Elizabeth, you're the first person. If you want to ask your question, your microphone has been unmuted. You can go first now, then followed by Olufemi. Thank you. Elizabeth, okay. Olufemi, please, if you want to ask your question, you can ask your question right away. Your microphone has been unmuted. Olufemi, if you can speak, please. If you have any question, I see your hands raised up. Please ask your question. Otherwise, I'll move on to the questions on the group already, so we don't really take our time. Okay, so it seems nobody is asking questions, but you can always drop your questions on the chat while I go with the questions I have on the group chat. I mean on the WhatsApp now. So for now, I'm not looking at anyone like here. So I'll be looking on, I'm going to the WhatsApp first to pick the questions that people have been dropping. All right. So the first question, Mr. Ahmed, someone, just one person asked the whole of this question. So he asked, what are the specific skill one should have to be recognized as a certified beginner data analyst?
Okay. That's I don't want to say that's a tough question because so the world we live in today, a lot has evolved. And this is what I mean. I will try to be very brief with some of the answers. For you to be recognized as a certified beginner analyst in today's market, um, okay, the mic is muted. Can you hear me, Samson? Is that message for me?
No. You can go on, sir. I
Okay.
just muted his mic. You can go on, sir.
Okay. Thanks. So let's just do a sort of a flashback in the last say 10 years thereabout. if you knew just Excel, maybe you have a project like the one you've just built, you probably would get a job as an analyst. Straight up. No competition in the market. The job description at the time was just no Excel, and then you're fine. In the last 5 years, things started to change. Power BI became popular. A lot of other BI tools, Google Data Studio, Tableau, they became more predominant in the market. And so the demand shifted a bit from an analyst knowing Excel, because Excel then became more like an household name that is expected, that is a tool expected of almost everybody in the workspace, in the workplace. But the focus then shifted to people knowing some BI tools. But today, the market today has also shifted a bit with the advent of AI, the involvement in AI, and some other technologies that we have today. But what I would typically would advise is this. There are a number of considerations for anybody who wants to start out in this space. Number one consideration is that what job market do you want to explore? Do you want to explore a Nigerian job market, or you want to explore the foreign job market? This is important because it's going to guide you as to what you're supposed to learn. If you're limiting yourself to the Nigerian job market for a start, number one, baseline, you have to know Excel to a certain extent. And knowing Excel is pretty much relative. Pretty much relative. In fact, when you look at job descriptions and they are asking for advanced Excel, it will be interesting to you that what it means by advanced Excel is actually sometimes some intermediate level. I attended an interview I think that will be about 5-6 months back. This was meant to be a BI specialist role, okay, with one top firm in Nigeria. And so when I got on the call, supposedly it was supposed to be a technical interview. So when I got on the call, one of the guys on the call asked me, do I know Excel? I said, of course, yes, I know Excel. Then the next question was that, do I know VLOOKUP? Then I felt, oh, VLOOKUP, what do you mean? Okay, so that is to tell you that when you see job descriptions out there, they tell you that they're asking you for advanced Excel. Sometimes it's pretty much relative. What some would regard to be advanced Excel is very much an intermediate level. So it's not a straightaway thing to say that you have to know Power Pivot, know Power Query. You have to be able to use array functions. You have to be able to use cube formulas. Those might just be too much for you, especially if you are just starting out. But lay your hands on some very important functions when it comes to working with numbers, the aggregations, the countif, SUMIF, all of those functions. When you're working with text, when you're working with some conditionals, you just have an idea of all of those and you have something to show for it. So baseline, then you pick a BI tool. A BI tool might be you picking something like Power BI. If you are focusing on Nigerian market, Power BI is still used predominantly in the Nigerian market. Maybe about 70-80% of companies that are subscribing to BI tools in Nigeria, they use Power BI. So you may want to go that route. Then SQL is very important as well, because a lot of organizations today, they are getting data mature. And because of that, they now have databases. We have shifted from the time that most organizations would have their data set in a spreadsheet, even though some still do have, but we have organizations now in Nigeria that have a whole lot of data. I worked somewhere that one of our fact tables had about 120 million rows. One of the fact tables had about 120 million rows, and this data has been limited to just the current year and the previous year. So now imagine that the data set is opened up to bring in everything that we still have in the database. We probably would be having about 1 billion records there. So that is to tell you that SQL is very important as well. So you need to learn SQL. You need to be comfortable with it. The select, have anywhere, order by, group by, know some joins, be able to do some subqueries, some CTEs. Maybe that might just be enough. Or maybe if you have some wherewithal as well, just do some Windows function as well. So that is SQL added to it. But if you want to go beyond the Nigerian market, it might be important to explore beyond Power BI as a BI tool. So maybe you want to explore some Tableau, you want to explore some Google Data Studio. Just pick one in addition to Power BI and you also want to learn the fundamentals of programming, Python is highly recommended. A lot of Nigerian firms, from my experience, they ask for Python, but eventually you may not have to use it on any project, except if your role is married with some AI or machine learning and stuff. But if you're doing core data analysis, core business intelligence, I have not seen any of such Nigerian firms who ask for Python that you would actually eventually use it. But if you will be working in the foreign market, you may have to add that to your arsenal. So that's like the summary of it. No Excel, baseline. Then pick a BI tool depending on the market you're exploring. Learn SQL as well. And then you may want to add some programming experience to it. Basic of Python will be fine. If you want to go a bit more, you can learn some Python libraries as well. I think that suffices, so we can move on to the next question.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ahmed. The next question has been answered, but for preference, I'll just read it. But you've
Okay.
answered it already. The question is: data analysis is said to be wide. Which area is the founding skill that must be learned as a beginner? And you've actually mentioned Excel, then followed by Power BI, followed by SQL, followed by Python. So this has been answered by you. So the third question is: can one focus mainly on one and not the two between Excel and Power BI and still be a renowned data analyst? If yes, what are the important areas of specification to master, and what's the difference between both tools?
Okay. Let me pick it from number one is can you pick one of them and just be sufficient with it? The straight answer would be yes, but the other answer to it will be that would be risky if you're just starting out. So it makes sense at the start for you to explore a lot more and then narrow down your path as you continue your career. So you might have all of the skill set, and then when you maybe 2 years, 3 years into your career, you now want to specialize. You want to be a Power BI developer. So which means you are narrowing down your path into just Power BI and Power BI related technologies. That might make sense. Or you want to become an Excel specialist or an Excel developer. That might make sense as well. But while starting out, restricting yourself to one of the two tools, I think that might be too risky for you to do. Then what are the differences between the two tools? A couple of differences actually, but baseline, Microsoft owns the two tools. Excel and Power BI, they are Microsoft tools. And also backstory is for you to know that Power BI actually began as an offshoot of Excel. So some years back, Excel, maybe around 2010 or so, Excel introduced a tool called Power Query. In 2016, I think they introduced Power Pivot, and then, or maybe some earlier before then, I'm not so sure of the years again. But again, this Power Query that you have in Excel, Power Pivot in Excel, they began as what we have as Power BI today. So Microsoft put them together sometime 2014, 2015, and then they packaged them as a new product, which we have as Power BI today with a whole lot of enhancement. A whole lot of us are developed in the Power BI ecosystem today. But what are the differences? When you build an Excel report, for example, like you have done in the projects that Samson mentioned, you're done, depending on how the structure of the organization is, you have a couple of ways to share your report with people. So you might want to share your report with them via email, or you want to put your report on a shared drive. Maybe you're putting it on SharePoint on OneDrive, and then whoever is supposed to access it, they go in there to access the reports. But one thing about it is that whatever report you have there, so long as the link is available, anyone who lays their hand on that link, they will be able to access it. That's number one. That is one area that Power BI has come to make up for. So for Power BI, there's some level of security that you can put in place, such that even when someone has a link to a report, they are not able to view that report. So it's called row level security. In Power BI, we have object level security as well, but it's just a way of restricting access to certain reports. Beyond that, within where you have published the report as well, you can even define those that are supposed to have access primarily. So without it being restricted in any way, by way of saying that they should only see what is limited or what is not. So that level of security is there. When it comes to visualization, Excel thrives very well, but Power BI also excels in the way you are able to come up with some nice visuals out of the box. for you to build very interesting stuff in Excel, especially for those of you that you probably have, maybe you had some experience with Excel before this bootcamp, you would know that you need to be very creative, very, very creative for you to build something really, really nice and what stands out in Excel. But for Power BI at the base level, you may not need that level of creativity to get something that is visually appealing, because some of the visuals are just nice out of the box, just a few formatting, and then you are fine. Then the other thing about it is that um, Power BI out of the box is able to manage a lot of data, a whole lot of data. So, for example, your native Excel, I'm saying native Excel, so you quote me properly. Your native Excel has a maximum rows that you can take, which is 1,048,576. That's the maximum row you can get to on a worksheet in Excel. If you need more than that, you need to go into a new worksheet. But there's a tool in Excel that makes up for that shortcoming, which is Power Pivot. But Power BI as a tool can take millions and tens of millions of rows, hundreds of millions of rows comfortably, so long as your system is not going to crash. So those are some differences between the two tools, but essentially is for you to know that one is not going to replace the other. You get into some organizations, seemingly big organizations, they have Power BI licenses, but it will still ask you to build all their reports in Excel. So you cannot rule Excel out. And then you get into some other organizations, they tell you that, yes, we have Excel report, but we want to transfer everything. We want to move everything, migrate all our Excel reports to Power BI because we feel Power BI will do us better. So between the two tools, I would advise that you pay attention to both and you try to learn both to the best that you can. One is not going to replace the other. They have their different places, and then they have where they both stand out. And especially because in the traditional market, a lot of people are used to Excel, so you may still have to use Excel even when you want to go the Power BI route. And going back to what I mentioned earlier, I think it's just safe for you to learn or both at the start, and then while in line in your career, you might want to narrow down to one side or the other. Something, please remind me. I'm not sure if I've captured all the questions, but I think I might have.
Yes, thank you so much. You actually captured everything, and even beyond. So
Okay.
before I continue with the question on the group, now I have two people who are ready to speak. So the first person is Olufemi Faweya. Please kindly go on with your question. Your mic is unmuted.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you can
Morning.
hear me now.
Yeah, can hear
Okay. Thank you I would like to thank the organizer of this program for giving me the opportunity to be a consumer of this bootcamp. I looked through everybody on the platform and realized that we are at different stages of development. Even though sometimes you have different levels of education or different kinds of professional background, the type of data analytic software that you need is quite different. And for me, I've been around for a while. The first time I learned SPSS was on Logframe. Even then, it wasn't easy. So, as an epidemiologist, sometimes you go for interview, they're asking you for your proficiency in SES, Stata, SPSS, and I've tried all those, but when it comes to really, you can learn them, but practicing them is quite different. Telling stories with data visualization. I actually went for a class in Tableau, but looking for people that have license in Tableau is quite different. And the essence of the Tableau, the Power BI, and the pivot tables we're using right now, at this point in time, I still have a challenge putting the data at wherever it is, because it depends on where you put your data label that will help you come up with your table or pivot table. So if you sometimes you put age somewhere and then you just see a line. So I need to know how to move those labels to count to values and all that. I know sometimes they say if it's numeric, if it's categorical, but sometimes it still hasn't worked for me. And I would like to let people know that some of us still need a lot of hand holding to be able to go do the assignments, not just mentoring with one another, because the mentoring coupling didn't take into cognizance where you're located. I'm in the US and my partner is in Nigeria, and the time difference is not helping much. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your question. Looks like there are a number of directions to it, but more specifically, you asked about pivot tables, how to identify where to put what on the pivot table to get the desired results. Correct, Olufemi?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when it comes to pivot table analysis, it's you're coming from some statistical analysis background using Stata and all of those things. I can say that because sometime 2019 thereabouts, I attempted to learn data programming too, but it was a bit tough because it had a bit of encoding that you have to you would understand, especially from SPSS as well. So, but the tools and technologies we are using today, they are a bit more flexible, more user-friendly than those, but they still need us to understand the basis of how data works. So when you're working with pivot tables, essentially pivot table has 4 buckets. I do call them buckets, but more like areas you can put your labels, your data labels into. So you have the rows, you have the columns, you have the filters, and you have values. Now, every single data that you're working with, I mean, every single column in your data set can be categorized into 2. It's either that column holds data that is quantitative or it holds data that is qualitative. What do we mean by data points being quantitative? What it means is that the content of that column can be aggregated. You can sum it up and it will make sense. An example is you have a column that holds maybe units, the units that you sold in the business or revenue or such numbers. So that will make sense if you add it up, because it makes sense to say that the total amount or total revenue is so. But you have a column that holds PO Box, for example. PO Box can be 1120, 2134. Those are numbers in reality, but they cannot, it doesn't make sense to sum them up. So when you have the ones that make sense to be summed up, those are naturally quantitative. The other categories that are left, those are qualitative, or you call them categorical. So when you look at the pivot table buckets that you have, the baseline is that anything that is quantitative should naturally go to the values. Anything that's quantitative should go to the values, because the values bucket is the one that has been programmed for aggregations. So then you are left with 3. You have rows, columns, and filters. For rows and columns, your categorical data can go in there. The difference now will be in the orientation of your report. Whatever you're dropping in the rows, it means that you want the items to be listed top to bottom, vertically like this. So that will be the orientation that your pivot table would follow. But when you drop a field, a label, you drop it in the columns, it means that you want the labels to be listed left to right, horizontally on your pivot table. And then whatever is in the value will be the summary for those labels. So each label will now have a corresponding value that will be attached to it. Then the values bucket, it being powerful, allows you to switch the kind of calculations, because it has been programmed for calculations. So you can now switch the calculation depending on what you put there. The default will be to sum up the numbers. So when it sums up the numbers, there are times that what you need for your own case might not be a sum. You need probably an average. So you can switch the calculation to average. Maybe you would have watched that from all of the lessons that you did last week, or you switch it to a max or a mean or count, or the different calculations that are there. But if it so happens that, for example, you said you're an epidemiologist, maybe you work on some healthcare data that doesn't have quantitative data per se. For example, you are looking at patient visits, or maybe that's what come to head. I didn't study anything else related. So you're looking at patient visits, for example, which means you only have names of patients and their attributes and nothing to really aggregate. So in that case, if you want to know if you put any of the categorical data labels in the values field, the option that you have for your calculations will be two. One of two. It's either you are doing a count of whatever you have put in there, which will be the defaults, or you are doing a distinct count. What is the difference between a count and a distinct count? Count will just count every single instance. Distinct count will count a single instance per person, removing duplicates. So count will count even when there are duplicates. Distinct count will count, removing all duplicates. But again, this needs a lot of practice from you. You need to beyond the data set that you already have. I'm aware that you've been given access to where you could get some data set. You need to download a few more data sets, try to play around it with a pivot table, try to switch the different calculations, and then you see the different changes there. But again, this is just a summary of how the pivot table works. There are a few more advanced things that you probably will learn going forward.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. I hope that answer your question, ma'am. All right,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Ahmed, before I go to the next person, Adebayo, still on the power pivot, a question was noted by Victoria Timmy, so I'll just read it to
Okay.
you. So she said, please, what can one do after creating a pivot table, and then you created a dashboard from it? And while going through it again to be sure of your data communication with stakeholders and you realize something is missing, does it mean you have to start all over again? Or is there a way to navigate around that? Because this is very vital to communicating your results.
Okay. So you've completed your report, you realize something is missing. What you realize to be missing could be one of a couple of things. Maybe you realize that your data should have updated, but your data did not update. Or maybe when you brought in the data into Excel, for example, you probably got the data from a source, you brought it into Excel and then created your pivot tables. At that time, you realized that there was a column that you omitted that is vital to your analysis. What do you do? What I typically advise is this: number one, when you want to create your pivot table, convert your original data to a table. Format it as a table. That's what I mean. So the original data over which you want to create your pivot tables, convert it to a table. So when you convert it to a table, the advantage that will give to you is that even when you have created all your pivot tables, and then you realize that maybe you have new rows, new records now, and you add it to the source data, the only thing, because you have converted that area that you plugged your pivot table onto, you have converted to a table, the only thing you have to do is to go where you have all your pivot tables, you click on any pivot table, go to the pivot table analyze tab, or you see analyze depending on the version of Excel that you're using. So when you go on there, you click on that tab, you will see a refresh button. Click on the drop down, just do refresh all. So that will reconnect to your data source, and then it will update based on the new records that you have. That's an advantage if you already converted it to a table. If you did not convert it to a table, you will need to still go to that tab that says pivot table analyze. You see in there's a button that says change data source. You click on change data source, and you need to now pick the data area again that will connect to the entire data area, which would include the new rows that you have added now. But if you already converted to a table, you don't necessarily have to use the second step. So either of the cases, whether you have new rows added to your original data, or there was a column that was missing, if you're already formatted as a table initially, just essentially add the new data set or add the new column to it, go to your pivot tables, click on the pivot table analyze, refresh all. That should naturally pick it if everything was done correctly from the start. I hope that answers it.
All right, that was a good one. Thank you for the answer to that question, sir. All right, so I'm back to the charts. So I can see Adebayo, you have a question. You can ask your question. Your microphone is unmuted. Adebayo, if you are with us, you can ask your question now, or I will just take the next question. Okay, so I will assume Adebayo is not available at the moment. Okay, so I have a question from the chat, from the meeting chat. You have, but you can unmute. Just unmute your microphone. You have been unmuted. I just unmuted you so you can have allowed your microphone. So you have to activate it on your hand. Okay, so while we are doing that, so DK has a question. He said, my question is, I transitioned from working as a quality engineer for 2 years to data analyst. Should I apply for an internship? But there is always an age limit to application. How will I go about this?
Okay. Quality engineer transitioning to data analysis. Number one is you have some experience. The more important thing for you at this stage, to answer straight up, I don't think you should be looking for internship. That's number one. And this is because you already have some work experience. And with this work experience, as a quality assurance engineer, my assumption will be that you would have worked with some data at some point, especially because I worked in FMCG, so I know what works there. So as a quality engineer, you probably would have used some spreadsheets. Maybe there will be some application in the business that you've used to manage some data about on the product or whatever you're working with. You need to be able to tell your story of when you were a quality engineer and marry that to data analysis. This is what I mean. You working as a quality engineer might have had you to do some data entry, some basic data analysis, some statistical analysis, whatever kind. That should be what you have predominantly in your resume, even when the title still says quality assurance or quality engineer. So this story is what you need to now push forward whenever you have the opportunity to interview. There might be a bit of a setback because of your job title, but again, is that because again, the HRs, like they always would say, they say that they use an ATS system to screen what CVs and stuff. The system would look at what you have as your achievement, which is more like what you have written under the different roles that you've had in the past. But just ensure that as part of the header of your resume, you have it written there, data analyst or BI analyst or whatever kind of role you are looking for. So that when the system scans it, it picks at a point that there is data analyst surfacing here, and then it picks some relevant description that would match whatever they have put in the job description that's been loaded into the system. So, but again, essentially is you have some work experience. My opinion, just a personal opinion, I do not think that you should be looking for internship at this stage. If an internship comes your way, which is probably someone recommended you or referred you, super, please take it and use that to start your journey. But for what you will be applying to, I do not really think you should be looking for more for internship. You should be more around entry level roles. And this is also because of the fact that internship these days, imagine that we have 1,000 out of school who are they're just done with some NYC in Nigeria and they're looking to have their first role in data analysis as well. Naturally, those all are looking for internship. So the saturation that you have at the level of internship is quite a bit. But again, because you have some experience, you should look beyond. You may just have to also have a number of projects in your portfolio that you can use to showcase that, okay, while you worked as a quality assurance engineer, you've also had to work on some data related projects that you can. And that might be, and this is something I tell people as well, that whatever interview that you get into, maybe it's not a conversation, but let me just share this. Whatever interview that you get into and you have the opportunity to show them something, make that one of the first things that you show them. If you've been told that you'll be doing a presentation, put in a lot of effort, because that's would many times change the narrative of the interview, and it just becomes a conversation. People are not, because that will show that you know what you're doing, and it just pushes you beyond some doors. But summarily, you shouldn't be looking for internship at this stage. You should be more of entry level, but if internships come your way, please embrace it.
All right, thank you so much, sir. All right, so Adebayo, if your microphone is now unmuted, you can go ahead with your question. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon.
Yeah, loud and
Yeah.
clear.
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. My question is along the line of building your portfolio. How much projects do you have to have worked on each skill to attach with your portfolio? That's basically my question.
Okay. For projects, it's more of quality than quantity. If I'm to review portfolios, maybe for a job, and then I see someone with 10 projects, I see another with 2 or 3 projects. My natural instinct will want to look at 2 or 3 because that would make me spend a little less time than looking at 10 projects. So naturally, what I think you should focus on is quality, building more quality projects than having too many projects. And one of the things that you might want to do, especially, is to narrow the projects down to the kind of industries that you aim to work in. For example, you have interest in FMCG, maybe you have interest in fintech, financial services. Just pick like 3 major industries that you have interest in and try to build 1 or 2 projects per those industries. I think that should be fine, but dip yourself and immerse yourself fully into those projects, make it the best quality that is possible. That is the big thing there. So if you have 2 projects, but they are of great quality. And what I mean by quality is, imagine you are building an Excel dashboard and you have implemented almost everything that is possible when it comes to building something nice. I'm sure from the projects that you've seen Adewale built, you would have seen what it means to build something quality in Excel. Same thing in Power BI. You can have one Excel, one Power BI, depending on what kind of roles you're looking at. But again, bottom line is quality over quantity. Yeah.
Thank you
Thank you,
so
sir.
much. Thank you very much. So, Victoria Temitope, I can see your hands is raised up. If you can speak, kindly go ahead and ask your question. Victoria Temitope.
Good afternoon. Mr.
Good
Mayede.
afternoon.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you so much, Sammy. So, my question is as regarding the last end of the question on project, and if you already have an experience in a field. Okay, I have experience in supply chain for almost 5 years. It's not even almost 5 years, like it's a family business that we've been running. So I've been involved since my secondary school days. But later I realized some things that there are some problems that we encountered that really affected the business, the growth of the business. So then during my final year in school, my professor told me about data, that I can use data to solve the problem. But I don't really have much knowledge. I just did data doing like I am soil parameters and all these stuff, but I don't have the knowledge like that. I even paid for the SPSS stuff. But later now, I now realize how much data can help an organization. So I want to ask, okay, I'm new to using data tools. So I just started with fundamental. Let me just understand what some definition is, visualization, tools that you can use and that. But I realize that can I call myself, okay, now that I've been into supply chain, I don't want those experience to waste, like my years of experience to be a waste. And now I'm learning these data tools, how I can use them to solve business problem. If I want to put down my resume, how will I go about it? Now that I'm just learning this and my focus is supply chain, like how like my focus because I don't want those years of experience to just be with, but I want to integrate these tools to solve. And now I got I got a program. Is it a program? No, it's not an offer. I don't know how to put it. There's this program that I joined, but it's based on international role. They asked us to put down our resume, but it must be focused on IT. And I want to pick data analysis. I don't know how I can integrate that because I'm just learning the tools, but I have experience in supply chain. How can I integrate this, like learning these tools now? How will I put it to my years of experience, and how can I go about it? Like go about writing my resume, building my project. Luckily for me, I went to meet my uncle that is the manager. He told me that they have the data from 2010, like the quantity goods, the units sold and everything, suppliers and everything. That they have it, but it's not inputted on any virtual tool like Excel, or it's not inputted in a spreadsheet. It's just a manual input. So how can I go about that? I really want to use that as a stepping stone, like to get into the job market. So that's
Okay.
my yes.
Okay. Thanks for the question. So one thing that I think everyone should know is that when you are advised, for example, to say that pursue a career in data analysis, that doesn't necessarily interpret to mean that you should forego your line of studies. No. For every field, for everything that you have a background in, there is an opportunity to marry data with it. And that is why, which is one thing I tell people as well, is when you are looking for roles, data related roles, never narrow yourself down to only search for data analyst roles. There are operation analyst roles, sales analysts, supply chain analysts, a lot of healthcare analysts, a lot of other specialized roles, which would need you to know some analysis and also be able to also have some domain knowledge in specific fields. You coming from a supply chain background is super interesting. You have that knowledge already. You have that domain expertise. What you need to know now is the data analysis side of things, which is what you're learning already, which makes sense. So at the end of the day, you want to be able to use your knowledge of analysis. You want to implement it in the supply chain ecosystem. So what you need to do, number one, is this. Beyond this class, your research, supply chain analyst, what are specific skill sets that you need to function as a supply chain analyst? And I'm saying this because when you have specialized areas like that, many times the requirements to get into them might be slightly different from the general data analysis requirement. I'll give you a couple of instances. Olufemi mentioned something about being an epidemiologist earlier. What that means is that in healthcare, for example, even as at today in healthcare, you want to go in as an healthcare analyst. For example, you will be asked to, one of the requirements will be for you to know some SPSS. You might be asked some stata. Those are not traditional tools or languages that every data analyst would use out there. So which means if you had narrowed yourself down to knowing only Excel, Power BI, SQL, when you know that you want to be able to marry data analysis to your specific field, you might be doing yourself some level of disservice. So what is important for you at this point, Victoria, is go research what are the specific tools and skill sets that a supply chain analyst would need. I can bet you that you'll find Excel as one of those skill sets. Maybe you will see some Power BI there as well. Maybe you will see some SQL there as well. But there will be some other areas, especially as they relate to supply chain as a field. So if you already have a background, you might need to polish those areas again. And then also some additional tools that will be mentioned, you need to add that to those things that you need to learn as well. So when that has been sorted, then for you trying to get a role, you need to narrow it down. You are looking for supply chain analyst roles, or you are looking for logistic analyst roles in that field. You need to narrow it down, and you might even be fortunate to get that faster than someone that is looking for a more general data analyst role, because domain knowledge would always make one tribe. If you have domain knowledge, you have a background in manufacturing, and you are looking for a role in the manufacturing space as an analyst, you probably would have an edge. So just a general talk to everybody. You wanting to pursue a career in data analysis doesn't necessitate or doesn't necessarily mean that you need to now pull off everything that you've learned in school or what you already know or what you have been doing. No, What you need to do, which is a big assignment for you, is to find a way to marry what you know, what you have been doing, with analysis. And that knowledge, that is the exact impact that you want to show on your resume, by way of saying that yes, you have some experience. I may not say that you should mention 5 years experience, especially if you are just out of school. You may want to bring it a bit down to say 2 years, but the achievement that you mentioned there should be about supply chain and analysis. So supply chain and analysis, but you're able to tell that story better on your resume after you have done this research and you have an idea of what impact data would actually make in supply chain, in the way of having to restock, know the restock level or some other things like that. So I don't know if that answers it a bit, so we can take a few more before we run out of time.
All right, thank you. I think that answers the question, and I'm sure that is the best answer ever that you can get. So I'll be taking just 2 more questions because we're almost at the end of the time. So from the chat here. So this question is coming from David Sunday. David Sunday said, what are the best practices for technical design projects? How should dashboard or analytics output be structured and presented effectively? They now said, which remote job platform or link can we use to apply for our technical skills after completing projects? And what are the best free platforms that offer certified courses for enhancing these skills that are more recognized by employers for career growth or job opportunities?
A lot of questions. Let me try to pick them one at a time. Hopefully I remember all. What are the best practices for project for structuring a dashboard?
Yes.
Number one is, so number one is, there is no one size fits all for dashboarding, and you can do a test. So just go online, go on Google and search for sales dashboard, for example. You'll see myriads of dashboards, a lot of them to the extent that you might be confused which one should you copy or not. But when it comes to best practice, a lot of the times is not adopted everywhere. So which means that you might know it to be best practice, but you get into an organization, you want to implement the best practice that you know, but someone is telling you that your dashboard is not fine. Your dashboard is not good looking. That's what they are telling you. So what that would mean is that first is try to learn the best practice, and for you to learn the best practice, there's an international institute who has been at the forefront of propagating what should be the best practice around dashboarding styles. They are called IBCS. IBCS is International Business Communication Standards. You can search them and read about some of their works. But again, they will open your minds to how business communication or dashboarding should be like. Also is that one of the materials that would also help you, especially to understand how to put what and how to report numbers, how to focus attention on certain things on your dashboard. You need to read this book by there's this common book. What's it called? It's on visualization. Seem like I've forgotten, but when I remember it, or if Wally is on the call, Wally most likely will remember that book. So there's a book on that as well that you might want to, a couple of them, but one that's storytelling with data. Thanks for that, Olufemi. So storytelling with data is super excellent. It's one book that you might want to read. There is the Information Dashboard Design also by Stephen Few. That is also an excellent read. But again, it's just start with the IBCS. That will give you a breakdown as to what is important. IBCS also wrote a book. They called it the Arched something design, something like that. I should have a book somewhere here, but not close by. But again, the point is, learning those will open your minds to the best practice. But again, is you should also be able to adapt to the style that whatever organization that you work in, they are using, especially when it comes to the colors that they use, the fonts that they use, just general styles that they have within their communication standards in that business. Try to implement those. But to say that this should be the way that you always structure your dashboard, I think that may be too much of a restriction to give when it comes to dashboarding. Please remind me the second question, Samson.
Okay, so she asked about remote job platform that we
Okay.
can apply to, yeah.
Remote job platform. I'm not, for me, okay, something works remotely. I don't work remotely. Remote job platforms, there are a couple of them. So you hear people talk about remotework.co, maybe there is Fiverr, there is Upwork. There may be a couple of them, but that's not an area that I generally focus on. I've worked remotely before. I worked remotely for some 2-3 years thereabouts when I was in consulting. When I left, I got back into the office. Some months now, I've actually worked more like remotely. But again, is that even in the Nigerian space, there are organizations that would afford you remote work. I know for the big four firms, maybe not entirely remote. Some of them do hybrid, but there are a couple of organizations, especially if they're startups, they would afford you the flexibility to work whether remote or not. But you getting to work remotely also depends on your level of experience. If you're just starting out, some organizations, even when they have the remote work policy, they might still not allow you to work remotely. But there are a couple of those platform online. It's not that I've not used any. I've tried a few of them years back, but I never got any role from them. So it's not something I could recommend to say that this is the platform you should use, because they never worked for me. So I might not be the best person to answer that question of remote work. But I'm sure Wally would have a wealth of experience to share on that. What's the last one, please?
Okay, so the last question is still on the remote job, but I think you've been able to answer that question.
Okay.
But this question is, and how can we break into JIB market, G? So this question is from Abubakar Mesu. I don't know if you want to set, just clear what you understand, what you mean by JIB markets and be an outstanding candidate. Can you just please, what do you mean by JIB markets as related to remote? So please, Abubakar, if you can just make sure you explain this. However, I think Mr. Ahmed, you've been able to answer all questions here. So I don't think there is one question that you won't answer. I'm checking right away. So
Okay.
someone asked question, um, he wants to know the difference between tools and skill. So it wants you to dissect the difference between that tools, I mean BI tools or your data analytics tools and skill. So it wants you to explain as a layman. So how does are they related? Are they different? Just please set some differences. Thank you.
Okay. I love this question. And this is because of the fact that in today's market and in this era of ours, we lay so much emphasis on tools because predominantly that is what shows your work. But that doesn't show expertise in any way. When we say tools, those are the instruments that you use to get something done. The skill is the inherent thing, is the thought process, the the concept that you've implemented in the way you showcased what you have showcased with the tool. Let me bring it back to data analysis. Data analysis itself is more of a way to achieve something. We want to analyze data. What are the things that you need to know when you want to analyze data? There are a lot of concepts that you should be aware of. Concepts like data ingestion. What does it mean to ingest data from a source? How do you ingest data? If your data is sitting on a relational database, what does relational databases mean? How do they differ from non-relational databases? What does it mean to ingest data from an API? What does API mean? What does it mean to get data from the API source? Then when it comes to data modeling, what is this concept about? How do you manage data models? How do you build scalable data models? All of these are concepts. When it comes to ETL, for example, what does it mean? What does ETL mean? Moving data from a source to the other, is that also ETL? Is ETL related to just having to clean data in Power Query? These are concepts that you should be aware of. And this would be more like the hard skills that you learn about data analysis. Then part of the skill set that you should have in data analysis at the topmost is communication. Think about it this way. You have done the fancy dashboard, you have done everything, then you are called to present, and then you begin to model up your words. You begin you don't have a coherent thought around what you want to say. You are not able to communicate your ideas clearly such that people would understand. It's a big deal when you see it on job descriptions that they want somebody who can communicate technical things to non-technical audience. It's a big deal because a lot of your stakeholders, think about your MD, for example. Your MD does not know anything Power BI. Your MD is not even interested in Power BI. The only reason why the MD has subscribed to Power BI is because they have told him that we need this thing to be able to monitor our numbers. What the MD is after primarily are those numbers. So when you're now in front of the MD, you are telling the MD that, okay, so we built an ELT pipeline or an ETL pipeline that is ingesting data from the source to this side, and then in Power BI, I built the data model, I wrote some DAX, I did RLS. The guy is confused. What is all of this? So in essence is that what tools are Excel, Power BI, Python, and all of those would get the job done, whether or not you know the concept, whether or not, because everybody can go on YouTube and follow a project A to Z. Someone is building an Excel project, everybody can do that. But the differentiating factor when it comes to any single tech field is for you to be grounded in concepts. You need to learn concepts properly. And one thing that you should hold on to, if you've not held on to anything in this session today, is that concepts never changes. They don't change. When we say ETL is the same, regardless of the tool. So if you understand what it means to build an ETL process, and then you have learned it with Power BI as a tool, you now find yourself in an organization that uses a different tool, you don't have to panic because you understand what it means to build an ETL process. What you just need to do with the new tool is, where do I click to get this done? But if you never understood what the concept actually meant, when you are in an environment that you start to use a new tool, you will panic, because everything that you knew revolved around Power BI, a specific tool. Now you want to use another tool, you need to start learning that tool from scratch, which will not be your case if you have learned concept properly. So my advice, please be well grounded on concept. And that's one of the things that I learned so much from Adewale. A backstory, in 2021, my job in 2021, Adewale was my lead. He was the one that hired me, just to put it straight. So Adewale was the lead then. He interviewed me, I got in, and I've had to be under his tutelage for quite a while. Interestingly, one of the things that Adewale is also heavy on is to understand why you are doing what. You don't just have to copy every single thing. Like, okay, this is where they put the slicer, this is where they put this. Why are they doing things the way they have done it? When you understand those are the things that will make you strive. So when you are learning the tools, please be heavy on concept, understand the whys about those things that you are learning, and you will go further than you ever think. Thanks, Samuel.
All right. I'm taking this last question by from Victoria Timtokwe. So she said, no, from Igioma. She said, my question is not really answered. Said, my question is about how do I go about building a portfolio website to put my project together? If you can answer that, please, sir. That's the last question.
Okay. How would you build a portfolio website to put your projects together? There are a couple of ways. The one that I've used before, I'm not, at the moment, I can't say I have a portfolio. I had it in the past, but I never updated it for some years now. The one I built then, I used GitHub page. So GitHub page, because a couple of things that you need to build a portfolio. Number one is the project itself. Maybe you have done the project in Excel, you have done it in Power BI and like that. Number two is you need where to host the project, because you don't want to be sharing files with people. Nobody would receive files as part of the application process. There has to be somewhere that all of those have been uploaded, and then they can click and go in there. So you need somewhere to host it. There are a couple of hosting platforms. Some are paid, some are free. The one I have used is GitHub page. So if you go on YouTube, how to create a GitHub page is pretty much straightforward. But as part of that process, you will need to have more like a dummy HTML page. So that HTML page, you have the code and you just have to be able to edit to move around it. You don't have to learn it. It's something you can figure out yourself. But those are the different components. So you need the projects themselves. You need a hosting platform. You can use GitHub Pages. It's free. So which means you will first create a GitHub account, and from there you'll create a GitHub page that would have something, your username.github.io. That will be like the extension which you can share with people. And then you need to be able to work around some HTML codes and CSS codes as such. So those are the three components that I believe you need. But this is something that you can get to build online if Adewale does not already provide a resource for you. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Ahmed. I think this has really been insightful, and I'm so sure everybody has learned one thing or the other. So just to wrap it up, someone asked a question. The question has been recurring. I think that's what so many people are looking for. Everybody's looking for a remote job. Okay, so just to add this, Mr. Ahmed has actually spoken about everything. He got it right. Just to add my experience, you get. So I work, you mentioned consulting firm. So fortunately for me, I work in one of the big four, which is EY Nigeria. So the work is remote, but hybrid as well. Sometimes you might be required to be on the client side. You have to travel down to the client side and work. But majorly for me, for my service line, I don't go to office if I'm not really needed. Maybe sometimes once in 3 months, sometimes twice in a year. I don't really have to go. So if you want to get a remote job, and to tell you, I got a remote opportunity through one of the projects that we did, I think 2 years ago, where we built an Adidas Power BI project. And that's why I'm begging you, take your project seriously. So the person who recruited me, one of the managers that recruited me, said he saw one of the Adidas projects we did. I don't know if Mr. Ahmed if you remember this, that Adidas dashboard. That is what he saw. And there's a project they are doing currently for Bank of Industry Nigeria then. And he asked me, can you do that? I said, yes, I can do it. I did that project, and that earned me even a progression at work. So if you want a remote job, you have to be global ready. He has mentioned everything. You have to understand the basics. Excel, SQL, intermediate level. Python is not really necessary. I've never used Python before, but Power BI is necessary because, of course, I use Power BI to build our project. So, and of course, your storytelling, business storytelling with insight is a tool you have to understand. Then another thing is you have to build a portfolio that solve real life problem. You want to, because your portfolio is something people will see when you are sleeping. Your recruiter sees it, and it's really making sense to them. Then from there you can initiate conversation. So you want to build, for your level, just do everything, just do something about everything. Do something about supply chain, do something about sales forecast, do something about customer inventory, marketing, procurement, which you have been doing in the group. So you want to build projects about everything, and you want to apply on platform. The first time I'm going to apply to a platform online is TopTal. TopTal, I think, is a US platform. Yes. So I was not given a job then, even though when I applied, but it's a starting level. Then I applied 2021, but it was negative. But I learned something from the interview. So Upwork, you can apply in Upwork. There are people looking for analysts. You can apply to TopTal, Contral, remote base, well found. We work remotely. And LinkedIn, importantly, people look at LinkedIn as LinkedIn is more powerful than all this platform that I've showed you or told you about. So you want to make sure that you optimize your LinkedIn to a level whereby your profile is looking good. By the time you follow all this strategy, trust me, you can get a remote job here in Nigeria and you live a good life. We have another example. We have Aino Ganiu working remotely as well, even from here in Nigeria. So getting a remote job is not actually an issue. It's about you. What do you want? What do you have? What can you deliver? That should be your question. So if we don't have any question here today, I think we have learned a lot today, and I want to say thank you so much to our boss who joined us today, Mr. Ahmed. It was an exciting moment, and we've learned a lot. So I'm seeing a hand, Olufemi Faweya. I think you have something to say, please, in 1 minute, please. I've enabled your microphone in 1 minute.
Okay, somebody asked for the name of the book. I put it on the chat before the class closes. I think it's Mr. Olushola.
Okay. So we can also put that link on the WhatsApp class, on the WhatsApp group. That would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Olufemi. So I really want to say thank you to you, Mr. Ahmed, for showing up today. Your thoughts, your experience, your everything, the questions you've been able to answer, they have brought so many insights. And I want to believe that everyone, as we are leaving this class today, there's something you've learned. And you've been gingered even to go back, work, just do the hard work. It will speak volume later. Do the hard work. Make sure your profile is looking good. Somebody's looking out for you. Remember that someone is looking out for you, and you may be called. My second project, my second remote job I was going to get was from a US company, but based in Nigeria. You can always say no if you're not fine. Yeah, you can always say no until you are fine. So thank you so much, Mr. Ahmed. Really value your presence this evening, and thank you to everyone who joined today. So we'll be putting the class to an end today. Next time we'll meet again. I, Joy Shiamaka, you are coming late, but please, if you have a question for our facilitator, in 1 minute, please. In 1 minute, you can speak.
Okay, good afternoon. Good evening, sir. I'm
Good
not
evening.
asking a question, but I just want to appreciate our facilitator, and I want to plead if you can help us to put up the names of the companies, because I was trying to write it down, but you were too fast.
Okay, yeah. we are out of time. So I will send the I will just put it in group, the name of the name of the companies. I'll put it in group. That's I promise. So once again, thank you so much everyone for joining today. I want to see you do your activities during the coming week, and have a productive week. Bye for now. Enjoy the music. Mr. Ahmed, thank you so much.
Yeah, bye everybody. Thank you.